Welcome to PHQ here on NewsCentral Television. There's a busy moment in Nigeria, politically speaking, and that is why some who already have a cap they wear have another. One of such is Ajuri Ngelale, who is the Senior Special Assistant to President Muhammadu Buhari on Public Affairs. And now another cap added to that is being the Assistant Principal Spokesperson, Tinubu Shatima Presidential Campaign Organization. Ajuri Ngelale, you're welcome. It's our debut on PHQ, and good to see you, and thanks for your time.
I'm humbled and honored to be here with you, especially on your debut. Thank you for having me.
I was actually, first time I said, of the Buhari, I said, wait a minute, he wears two caps. So I'm well in order. Well, good to see you. And,
sure.
Quite a lot happening in the space now, and many people are asking questions of your candidate, and that's Bola Tinubu, who's of the ruling All Progressives Congress. Now, let's open that document. It's an 80-page document, and it looks like the very first we're getting to see from any political candidate now. And some of the key concerns Nigerians are asking is, let's talk about security.
Sure. Absolutely. I think there are a few things to unpack here. One is that as far as the All Progressives Congress is concerned, we are absolutely proud of the fact that after decades of maladministration and neglect across sectors, that President Muhammadu Buhari has successfully laid a foundation for future prosperity, future stability in the country, and security is one of those. In security, we have seen obviously an unprecedented armament of our armed forces. In the Navy, we have new ship landing tanks, new gunships, new battleships. Obviously with the Air Force, we have brand new aircrafts, fighter jets, gun-laden helicopters from China, Russia, the United States, and several other partners. And then, of course, the Army, we have started the indigenous production locally of armored personnel carriers, drones, small ammunitions. These are things that we were wholly importing before President Muhammadu Buhari came into office. So he's really been able to kind of rebuild what was really a devastated military when he came in. Now, the question is, what is the next step? And His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is going to be doing a few things. One, he wants to enhance specialization within our armed forces. He wants to create a new orientation within the armed forces that really deals with a proactive approach to securing the nation. We want to really jettison some of the reactive instincts that had developed over the decades within our military. That's one. Secondly, there's going to be a massive recruitment exercise, not conscription, not forced conscription, but active recruitment of the best available young men and women in this country, intellectually as well as those who are physically capable. We are looking for them, and we are going to ensure that we make it worth their time with increased emoluments and benefit packages. In addition to that, we want to establish, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is going to be establishing a new Forest Guard Reserve. We recognize that even though His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari has done so well to flush terrorist organizations from the Nigerian territory, we still have this issue of hit-and-run attacks from time to time. We also have this issue of bandits that have come up that have really metastasized throughout our forests and taken advantage of that. What this Forest Guard Reserve is going to be doing is they're going to be uniquely equipped with the communication devices and the unique transportation platforms required to surveil in a real time, on a continuous basis, our forests, so that, obviously with drones, these are things you can't see under the forest cover, so we need to be in there. What the whole essence of that is, by surveilling it in real time and maintaining a presence within our forests across the country, we're not going to be leaving open these pockets for these bandit gangs to be coalescing and planning attacks.
Let me jump in here. Let me quickly jump in here, Ajuri, because I think it looks beautiful, it looks exciting, and but for Nigerians,
right.
Because I spoke to you recently, and some of the key things that Nigerians are saying that, look, whether you like it or not, the journey of Bola Tinubu ultimately cannot be looked forward without going backwards and looking at what President Buhari has done so far. And for some, they think it's a hard sell going by what the president has done so far. What can you tell people in terms of the economy now, looking at what Nigerians are going through at the moment, and how can you possibly let Nigerians know that truly perhaps there just might be a difference?
Thank you very much. I would just round up quickly on the point about security when we talk about the record before I go into economy, because the reason why I mentioned some of the accomplishments within security is I think oftentimes it's easy to forget how bad things were when we had bombs going off, not just in Abuja, almost on a monthly basis, but the weekly bombs that were going off in markets and mosques across Kaduna, Kano, Kebbi, Zamfara. Nigerians can remember that. We have not seen that in many years. So we know that there has been progress. The question now is, how can we conclusively deal with these threats and fully put an end to insecurity in the country? Now, on the economic question, this is something that we are very careful about, in the sense that we understand that there's a lot of pain in the country and a lot of pain around the world right now. If you're looking around the world, you recognize that you have increased inflation rates that really have spared no country, increased levels of currency devaluation, increased interest rates, food inflation and the like. It's around the world. We know the energy prices have had a negative impact on the price of goods and services around the world. Nigeria has not been spared from that. So this is a hard time to be a global citizen, and it's a hard time to be a Nigerian. And one of the things that we've been very mindful of is, while we are empathetic to the situation in the country, we are also trying to really make sure that people appreciate the fact of where we would be if not for the critical interventions made by President Muhammadu Buhari. And I want to be very specific. You would recall that in 2015, we were importing about nearly $4 billion worth of rice alone, almost wholly importing, because we were not producing it locally. We had moved, and this is something that anybody can fact check on the internet as well, we've moved from being the largest importer of rice in Africa in 2015 to now being the largest producer of rice in Africa as of today. This is as a direct result of the policy intervention that was the Anchor Borrowers Program run through the CBN, where we gave over 1 trillion naira to over 3 million farmers. Now, that does not mean that there are no challenges. Obviously, when you have high oil prices, high energy prices, gas and everything at a premium, that is going to have an impact on rice processing, rice mills and other industries that will ultimately produce the final consumable product.
We also understand insecurity is also affecting some of the farmers going back to farms.
The reason why I'm mentioning this, the energy costs, some people have asked me the question, why is it that if we're producing the rice, fantastic, but why is the price of rice going up? These are some of the dynamics. When we say that you have these high energy prices, it's going to pass on to the consumer when these things are being processed and milled. So these are some of the realities. Now, another issue is that we have been absolutely unparalleled in our determination to provide critical infrastructure in the country. Infrastructure is not just something that's pretty to look at. You have millions of young people that have been employed directly through the construction of roads, bridges, airports, and seaports across this country. I can name them. I think Nigerians have seen them, whether it's the Second Niger Bridge that's being commissioned in December that we started, we'll complete it. The Boni Bodo Road, 200 billion, that will link NLNG on Boni Island to the mainland of our country for the first time in history. That's going to be completed next year. You have, of course, here in the West, look at what has happened. The Lagos-Shagamu-Ibadan Expressway, the Lagos-Abeokuta-Ibadan rail line that we started and completed, the Apapa-Oworon-Shoki Tollgate Road. There are so many investments we've made. Obviously, Oyo, Bomosho, and so many others. If you go to the north, it's the same story. 5 new international airports. The first deep sea port, Lekki Deep Sea Port, that has been completed and will be commissioned before the end of the year. That's the first additional deep sea port that's been added to this country since the late 1970s. So we're making progress. The question now is about, okay, when we want to bring in, provide mass employment, there are 2 things that His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is bringing to the table, in addition to what President Muhammadu Buhari has laid the foundation on in terms of infrastructure. One is, we understand that right now 35% of all arable land in this country is under cultivation, meaning that we have 2/3 of all arable land in this country lying fallow with no purpose. What we want to do is we want to engage millions of young rural, particularly rural Nigerian youths to engage in a mass land clearing exercise across the country to take our cultivatable arable land in this country from the current 35% to 65% by 2027. That would be the end of the first term of His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. That's a major opportunity. The second one, and I think this is really important, Sulaiman, I know you have another question for me, is housing. This is a critical job creation opportunity that we believe that can absolutely be done with the sustainable modification that His Excellency is proposing. What are we going to do? His Excellency Asiwaju Tinubu is going to establish, literally from day one in office, he's going to be establishing a new consumer credit system in this country. We know that a major motivator of corrupt practice in this country has to do with the fact that the system has forced Nigerians to find money outside of their legitimate income to try and buy a car up front with cash, to buy a house up front with cash, to buy expensive domestic appliances like refrigerators and freezers up front with cash.
So when you talk about
rent up front with
now,
cash.
Are you talking about the credit system?
Yeah, absolutely. So the idea now is we need to, first of all, this is part of the proactive approach against corruption, is if we can make things affordable and available within the legitimate incomes of our people, then you're going to be killing a lot of corrupt practice in the country, particularly in the civil service. How are we going to do this? I want to be very clear about this. First and foremost, particularly relating to housing, His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu is saying, look, we're going to work with the National Assembly on day one when the 10th National Assembly comes into effect in June. They are going to immediately reform the Land Use Act to ensure that we streamline and standardize all of the process related to how developers will access land for the provision of housing in the country. So right now you can have a situation where Lagos, you might, from the time you submit your application to the time that you get your C of O, it might take maybe a month in Lagos, for example. But in another state that has not developed their processes, it could take 6 months. So we want to standardize that across all states of the Federation, standardize the cost, standardize the time frames and the efficiency. Then on top of that, the second level is all the developers who are able to access this land after we have done this, we're now going to incentivize them with tax credits and rebates for them to devote as much of their developments as possible to social housing. That is housing for poor and middle income Nigerians, so that we will have millions of houses that are being constructed by our urban youth.
I really had to
Absolutely.
comment.
I was almost done with the, yes.
Yes, I know that. But again, I'm quite sure some Nigerians can have access, have access to your manifesto.
Absolutely, yes, they can.
Is it available online?
It's an available document. It's something that they can even find on the...
You know why I ask? Because novel, beautiful, and no doubt, once you see a thing beautiful, you must say it is beautiful. But again, don't you think it's more or less a hard sell for anyone? I know you also represent President Buhari, because if you go out there, you go to your community,
right,
and you go out there, you speak to friends, and people talk about the hardship. Don't you think it would be easier for Bola Tinubu, even though he is your party's candidate, to go ahead and sell himself and not say we will continue on the good works, in quote, good, of President Buhari? Because many still think that President Buhari, in all of these that you have said, even though the border bridges there, the second Niger bridges there, rail lines, they still think that they're hungry and they're not happy with him. Can't Bola Tinubu sail alone without President Buhari?
No. The thing about this is that, first of all, there's nothing to run away from. President Muhammadu Buhari's record, let's just be very clear about this. We've talked about hard infrastructure. If you want to talk soft infrastructure with ease of doing business reforms, most Nigerians know what we've done in terms of automating tax collection, automating business name registration, and all of that. That's all granted. When it comes to stomach infrastructure, as it has been called, no administration in the history of our country, and I say this without fear of contradiction, including the military regimes, by the way, has ever put in place a broad-based social investment program like what President Muhammadu Buhari had put in place. This is direct impact through various mechanisms. You have over 13 million Nigerians currently benefiting. We recognize that the poverty problem is larger than 13 million. We still have work to do. We want to scale it up and expand it. But we went from 0 to 13 million. It's not as if we inherited it. So that's number one. So you have the conditional cash transfer dealing with the rural poor, and we're talking of the truly deeply impoverished, right? We're talking of the woman who sells plate of pomo of 500 naira. By the time she sells
By the way, you're about to ban pomo.
You're talking of a process of ensuring that We are not harming consumers
yes,
of
I
a
know.
product.
It looks
we
like
have
an
to
aside.
ensure,
I know this is an aside.
We have to ensure the safety of the consumer, of
look,
course.
I'm hungry. By the way, for all the Africans watching us,
Right.
we're talking about, hide, the skin of,
Right.
and that's a delicacy in Nigeria.
No, but consumer safety
say,
is
I'm hungry, and
yes.
you still want to ban pomo?
No. See, the process by which we get pomo to the end user, right, is very, very critical. Government has if now people are getting viruses, they're getting sicknesses and all of that through the consumption of a product, it would be irresponsible of any government not to take a look into the process, the beginning to end process of how it's getting to the consumer. We have to deal with that, and we're going to deal with it in an open and honest way. But it will get back to the market.
All right, okay, let's deal with education. Let's deal with education, because
right.
I'm trying. 80-page document.
Yes.
That's huge.
My last point on the social investment was that His Excellency Asiwaju Tinubu is proud of President Muhammadu Buhari's introduction of a program that has touched that many lives, and he's committed to scaling it up.
So education. We've seen a system whereby almost everyone, who's running for office, is either doing something outside Nigeria in terms of education, to the extent that education in the country is almost down. Your administration, this administration, has actually, under its watch, has seen our universities close for almost a year.
Right.
So what would this candidate, should he win, should he get Nigeria's vote, doing to change the course of our education sector?
Well, I think there are a few things to break down here. One is the fact that we understand that 80% of the bulk in the education, a burden within the education sector, when we talk about out-of-school children and the like, because a lot of candidates unfortunately like to glamorize the issue, and it is a serious problem that we have to tackle. But we understand, obviously, that that's a constitutional prerogative of the state governments. They deal with primary education. What the federal government does is to intervene through mechanisms such as the UBEC. Unfortunately, even with the UBEC, we find that a lot of state governments are not even ready to pay their counterpart funding for that infrastructure, a major problem. Now, moving forward, look, we are going to be putting in place, and it's in the manifesto, a few things. One, we want to change the orientation amongst Nigerian parents that the only way your child can be successful is if he's a lawyer, accountant, doctor, or scientist. We believe that that's an archaic mode of thinking, and we believe that you can be very successful even without a university education. Not that we are disincentivizing university education. Fantastic if you want to go that route, but we want to give people a second route, which has to do with vocational and technical education. His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu, just like you have in the West, where people aren't going to four-year colleges, but they're going to 1- and 2-year technical education schools where they're learning hands-on blue-collar trade skills, plumbing, carpentry, robotics, design thinking, software development, and things of that nature. We believe we can take Nigerians who have gone to maybe secondary school, right? And they actually now can get to a junction and make a decision for themselves. Do I want to go to a 4-year, or do I want to go to a tech school and immediately maybe start my own business or go into business with somebody else? These are the pathways that will be created through a program that will see to the establishment of a vocational and technical education center of excellence in every state of the Federation under His Excellency Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. And in addition to that, we are not, that deals with that side of it. The other side is the university education side, which you mentioned. And this is important. What His Excellency Asiwaju Tinubu wants to do is he's going to, immediately he gets into the office, establish a presidential special committee on education that is going to, for the first time, bring together education officials, not just within the regulatory side, within the ministries, states and federal, but also teachers, unions, but most importantly, captains of industry. These are CEOs of major manufacturers, construction companies, and the like. The reason, banking and the like, the reason why they are going to be strategic to this is they are going to, for the first time, re-engineer an entire national curriculum at all levels of education in the country to now specifically tailor the curricula that we're handing to our children to learn around the unique skill sets that are required in today's 21st century knowledge-based economy, so around the world. So what we are doing is we don't want a situation where people go and read law, people go and read science alone, right? And then they graduate with a certificate, they go to NYSC, they come out and there's no job. We want a situation where they have uniquely applicable skill sets that come with their certificates that they can now use to enter into industries as well as create their own enterprises. That's the future.
All right, let's close on this. Bola Tinubu, the man. And why should people vote for your candidate? Because some think he's a dictator, some think he's well, a usurper, some think that is someone who corners, resources, and all sorts that people have been saying about your candidate. Please.
Thank you very much.
Speak to Nigerians, if you can, in the next 2 minutes,
Absolutely.
why you think your candidate stands a chance in the next election.
Do you mind if I look into the camera? Let me go ahead and look into Nigerians' camera. First of all, the reason why I accepted the responsibility of being the assistant principal spokesperson for Asiwaju Bola Tinubu and Senator Kashim Shettima is the fact that we believe, and I certainly believe fundamentally, that there is a proven track record of deliverables and performance attached to his aspiration. We can look at his background, not just in the private sector, as a successful accountant who rose to the top of an international organization that is Mobil Oil, but also as an administrator, not just as a one-time senator, but as a governor of a state who inherited a poor state that was crime-infested, that had all sorts of challenges across sectors, was able to turn that into not just a regional, but a continental powerhouse, one of the leading economies in Africa, not just Nigeria, has now made it a safe state by employing many of those who were creating problems in the state when they were younger. These are some of the things he has been able to do. In addition to that, when we have problems around our diversity and national unity, this is the first leader in the Fourth Republic who brought together a state executive council made up of individuals from all parts of this country. He's not somebody who makes promises that are empty. He's somebody who has a proven track record of delivery. And we are saying that of all the candidates, the top two candidates in this election, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, only one candidate has a proven track record of delivering on what he says he will do. And so this is why I have decided to speak on his behalf, and this is why we believe that when we discuss the things of the manifesto, we stand on it with confidence because we have a man that we believe will deliver what he says he's going to deliver for the benefit of all Nigerians.
Ajuri Ngelale, many thanks for coming on Politics HQ.
Thank you for having me, Sulaiman.
Coming up, I'll be discussing Kogi State politics with a woman who's remained constant in the politics of Kogi State, Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan.